Man, where do you guys manage to come up with these articles? Because what you're doing is you're shaming me. You're article shaming me. Every single day, I wake up and I go on various publications in order to find out about interesting articles to talk on this channel. And they always pale in comparison with the gems that some of you send me in DMs. I mean, for decades, I've been lectured by publications that being prejudiced is wrong. Like, you should never be prejudiced. And I see in activist groups trying to criminalize hate in Europe. And I'm talking not about like physical violence or crimes. No, I'm talking about tweeting. Okay, like there are certain places in Europe, Scotland, where you can get arrested and face up to 2 years in prison for tweets, right? So it's kind of bizarre to now see an article that says, well, actually, it depends, right? Because smart people have their type of prejudice, and dumb people have a different type of prejudice. So which type of person are you based on your prejudice? Let me tell you about my prejudice. All right, I'm going to come up. Like, I don't know if I'm a smart person or a dumb person, but I got a lot of prejudice towards Vice magazine. So I haven't read this article. I swear to God, I haven't gone through it. I genuinely want you guys to see my original reaction, my original take to it. So here's my prediction. Vice magazine is a corporation. It's a for-profit entity. And because of that, it's going to try to cater to its readers. Like, it's not going to release an article that is calling their readers low IQ. And since this article was made in 2016, a long time after Vice stopped being edgy and it started gathering a very PC and progressive audience, this study is going to most likely find that if you have left-leaning prejudices, you're an intelligent person. And if you have right-wing prejudices, you're a dumb person. That's my prejudice. Like, that's what I think before reading this article. Furthermore, you also need to differentiate between a study that you read in a paper and a study that you read in Vice magazine. Usually, the studies that you find in Vice magazines or Breitbart or Fox News are studies that already confirm the narrative that the publication is trying to push. So, if you find a study which would show the opposite, that conservative people are very bright, Vice magazine is going to ignore it. Breitbart is going to publish it. If you find a study that finds that liberals are very bright, Breitbart is going to ignore it. Vice is going to publish it. All right, that's my prejudice towards the corporate press. And usually, I'm accurate. And regarding the study, I also need to add that the publications will try to get conclusions from the study that the researchers never intended for the study to have. But furthermore, they're going to most likely use studies that are, I wouldn't say bogus, but have a very small sample size. So like in the previous video that I made, there was a study done in China on 200 people, whether working from home or from the office is better. And they applied that study to the entire general population of the United States. Like, I don't think the original researchers meant for that study to be applied to the general population of the United States. But the publication, the paper, didn't care, right? Because they have a narrative to push. And when I say they have a narrative to push, I mean they're trying to cater to their pay piggies. They're trying to cater to the audience that's reading their paper, their core demographic, right? So let's see what this is about. Let's see how right I am. Let's see if my prejudice turns out to be true or not. Past researchers have found that people of lower IQ are more likely to be prejudiced, but prejudice isn't exclusive to dim bulbs. A new study finds that people at both high and low of the intelligence spectrum actually express equal levels of prejudice. The difference is what they're prejudiced against. So let me get this straight. Like, on one hand, You have scientists that say, well, no, actually, dumb people are prejudiced. But now you have a new study that says, no, like prejudice comes in equal amounts, but it's just like a different type of prejudice. So, like, what? Researchers may be wrong? Like, you're just saying that the previous researchers have been completely BTFO'd by the new researchers? Huh? Okay, fine. Are you telling me that there is a single person out there that has no prejudice whatsoever? Like, you need researchers to figure this out? Like, someone actually got paid in order to research that people have prejudice? Really? I mean, you didn't know that. So you're telling me that there is a human being out there who, let's say, walking on the street would see another person with a shaved head and a big swastika on his forehead. And you'd ask him, what do you think about that person? It's like, well, I don't think anything about him. Like, I can't say anything unless I talk to the guy. And it's like, really, you think nothing of him? Just nothing comes to mind. No, I don't have any prejudices. It's like, dude, like, it's got a big swastika. Like, don't you think he's a neo-Nazi? No, I mean, why would we assume? What if his friends pinned him down and forced that on his forehead? What if, like, he lost a bet? Why do we have to... Do you think there are such people on planet Earth that literally have no prejudices? Like, if they walk in a hospital and they see a guy in a lab coat, they would say, hey, look, that's a doctor. Like, how do you know? Did you speak with him? It's like, no, but he's wearing a lab coat. Yeah, but like, why should we assume? Like, maybe he just borrowed a lab coat from a friend. Like, why should we assume that he's a doctor? Like, you need researchers in order to tell you that people have prejudices. My God, like that is, wow. How much taxpayer money do you think was given to these researchers to find out these very interesting fakes? So the researchers, social psychologists, analyzed 6,000 subjects in their experiment. See, there we go, exactly what I said. So you're analyzing 6,000 subjects, and then you think that this is somehow relevant to a population of over 300 million in the United States. But not only that, right? Like, even if you have like 6,000 people from the US, it still wouldn't affect like the larger human population. Like, the culture in the US might be completely different than the one in Zimbabwe. So like, there might be different prejudices, like whatever, fine. Let's look at what they found. Removing value judgment about whether a specific prejudice is justified or not, they measured the amount of prejudice present in groups of higher cognitive ability and lower cognitive ability. They gauged the cognitive ability of their subjects using a word sum test, which is considered to be correlated to an individual's IQ. Brand and Crawford replicated previous findings that people of low cognitive ability tend to be prejudiced against non-conventional or liberal groups, as well as groups that have low choice in their status groups defined by their race or gender or sexual orientation, for example. Okay, so like the people with low IQ are prejudiced against protected classes. Okay, so they're prejudiced, I guess, against people of color, against gender, sexual orientation, right? By the way, why is gender here? Like, why is gender under low choice? Like, you can change your gender, didn't you know? Like, you don't have to change your gender from man to woman. You can become non-binary if you want. Right? Like, gender, in my opinion, I don't know if it's controversial or not, and I'm not having prejudice towards people of any gender, but I just want to say that it's not low choice anymore. Like, you can choose to change your gender. According to their research, this tendency inverted among people of high cognitive ability. In other words, the smarter subjects in their study were likely to be prejudiced against groups considered conventional or conservative groups, perceived to have high choice in their associations. People dislike people who are different from them. Again, like, researchers just blew my mind yet again. I never expected this. Like, people dislike people who are different than them. Yes. Derogating people with different worldviews can help people maintain the validity of their own worldview. No, you don't say. So communists hate capitalists. Research shows. In other words, if you see the world one way, you may rely on that perspective, so you might reinforce the idea that you're right by believing other worldviews are wrong. Oh no, no, like you don't. These people, wow, they reinvented the wheel. Engineers are baffled. There was another polarized finding in their study, and they found that low IQ people are prejudiced against groups that people didn't choose to be a part of, such as ethnic or LGBT groups. This is poignant in the 2016, a time when conservative communities across the country are unifying around intolerance of transgender people. Muslim Americans continue to face grotesque prejudice and police brutality is high. Alright, so this is what Vice magazine comes in with their lens, and they're basically explaining to you something that the study didn't really talk about. First of all, like, why do you assume that the police have low IQ? Huh? Why do you assume, Vice, that cops are people with low intelligence? Like, did you test them? Do you have a study? I'm not saying they're not. Like, maybe they are, but like, wouldn't you require a study in order to make this claim? Secondly, right, look at Vice going, it's like, okay, they're intolerant of trans people and they're intolerant of Muslims. First of all, like, I know a lot of Muslims that can choose to be atheists. Just pointing it out, like, this is a choice, but obviously you shouldn't be prejudiced against them. But what I'm saying is that Vice is now telling you which prejudices are against people without a choice in the groups they're part of, and the prejudice of the people with a high choice, right? So, not only that, they're also forgetting that there's a lot of liberals that are prejudiced against white privilege, right? Like, recently, there is a news that came out with an Amazon employee which beat up a woman in the street. Not a good look. Not a good look. You can Google it, okay? I'm not showing it here because, well, I don't want to upset the censors, but you can Google it. There's an Amazon employee who beat up a woman because she denied she has white privilege, right? So he applied the correction. He, like the communists love to say, made sure that she would check her thinking so that she never blasphemes again. Is that a high level IQ or a low level IQ given the study? So the researchers show that capable people often essentialize or see different groups as being distinct from each other with clear boundaries. Having clear boundaries help people feel like the opposing group is distinct and far away. That is, they won't be so much of a threat, they said. The researchers pointed to a recent study looking at the boundary phenomenon with respect to Donald Trump. Stupid plan to build a big wall along the southern border of the United States. Yeah, so why is it that the researchers have political biases? Huh? Is it not funny how the researchers with political biases find out that the liberal people are intelligent and the conservatives are dumb? It's almost like putting a creationist in charge of a study in order to prove that God is real and that they came out with evidence. You know, it's kind of like that. Kind of like putting socialists in charge of figuring out how agriculture works, and then you end up with Lysenkoism. Kind of like that, I would say. But not only that, so like, okay, Donald Trump building the wall, racist. Okay, stupid plan. Why is Joe Biden keep doing it? Is Joe Biden a Republican? Maybe he is. The conservatives who support the plan are expressing prejudice towards low choice groups. So researchers, what are the name of these brilliant, astonishing researchers? Brandt and Crawford. Okay, if I build a fence around my house, am I prejudiced towards the people on the street? You smart asses. Do you not have a fence around your property? Are you prejudiced towards your neighbors? That they might have their children hop the fence to steal cherries from your cherry tree, huh? So yeah, I mean, what do you want me to say? Like, you're showing me a study that is done on 6,000 subjects and then is being applied to the entire U.S. population. You got Vice giving its own take on the entire thing, like even outside of what the researchers are saying. Like, you get like Vice's personal take on it. And then the researchers are also heavily biased. And they're openly so. And in the beginning of the study, you also show, it's like, well, there was another study that showed that smart people aren't prejudiced, but that study is no longer valid. What we believe now is that there's like different types of prejudices, and smart people have a more interesting take than the dumb people. And it just so happened that the smart people are our readers. Like, what do you want me to say, right? Like, that's how you read an article. That's how you look into things. And by the way, right-wingers do it as well. Like, this is not something that is specifically inherent to the left, right? But you need to understand when you read something, who you're reading it from, and what is their purpose. Their purpose is to get you to keep reading their publication. They're not going to insult their readership. So let me know what you guys think. And if you want to know about science, read the actual papers. I know they're more boring, and it's a lot more lame to read from a science journal, but it's a lot better. When it comes to sociologists, like most sociologists, they admit they have an agenda, all right? Like they don't want to, they don't use the scientific theory. They don't use the scientific method in their studies. What they do is that they want to push for activism. They want to push for systemic change. And there are people. Now, they took the very controversial work of Mein Kampf and they removed the word woman and replaced it with the word German, and they removed the word Jew and they replaced it with the word man, and they managed to publish it in a very prestigious sociologist paper. Now, what's also interesting is that they fabricated other studies where they claim they went to a couple of businesses and asked the LGBT employees there if they feel that they're being marginalized, if they feel that they're being oppressed. And what they did is they fabricated data where in one paper, the data shows that the people are being oppressed, but when talking with them from their experiences, they said they don't feel like they're being oppressed. And another paper where the data showed that people aren't being oppressed, but they claim they were. Which one of these two do you think got approved? The answer? Both of them. It's just that the publication, in one case, told them, can you omit the data, don't mention it. And in another publication, they said just focus on the data and ignore the experiences of the actual employees. Right? Because they've been brainwashed, I suppose. Like, they don't know any better. So you need to be very careful when it comes to sociology, because the people who are doing the peer review that are supposed to do a good job are practicing a little bit of sociology Lysenkoism, like I like to claim. You know, they're politically motivated. They're openly so. Like, they actively claim that they have political motivation, so we should take their word for it. We shouldn't like just doubt, press X to doubt. No. So if you're seeing a paper that's published by actual scientists and they actually apply the scientific theory, that has a lot more credibility than if you see a paper by sociologists. Perfect example, and I'll end the video with this. If you look at papers regarding climate change. So you have papers done by actual climatologists, which crunch the numbers and they try to do the scientific theory. And then you have papers done by critical theorists within climate. And these are the people that wonder, like, why are we using satellite data and imagery when we should find equally valid to use the paintings of a feminist and her interpretation of the ice cap? So why don't we use that, right? Get like critical theorists now, they're like saying, well, racial climate change. It's like, it's not okay that countries like the US and Europe have been polluting for so long, and countries like China and India got a low start. So we should stop polluting in the West and allow the other countries to pollute more until we reach some sort of balance, right? So you shouldn't think that both people have the exact same regard. One group of people uses the scientific method, the scientific theory. The other people masquerade under the academia as being genuine scientists and not just political activists that are trying to influence opinions by publishing their papers in Vice magazine. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.